it's Renee Fouché here. Hey guys. All right, wonderful. Looks like we are live, guys. This is Renee Fouché from TopDailyCommissions.com. Welcome to This Is How I Do It, a fantastic interview series where I actually get to speak to some of the most successful entrepreneurs in multiple industries. And today I am lucky enough to have the honor of interviewing the wonderful Franco Gonzalez. So welcome, Franco. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, hi, Renee. My pleasure. My pleasure. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself this wonderful afternoon?
I'm doing fantastic, except that Pammy just messaged me and she invited me to go have teriyaki for lunch, and so she forgot that I had a hangout. So
I understand, Pammy. I wish I could come for some teriyaki for lunch too, and I'll make sure that I don't keep you too long so you don't even miss out on this.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I said, you know what? Just keep the stroll on right now. Keep the stroll on with the girls, and I'll meet you guys a little bit later. So.
That's fantastic, and it's great that we actually get to work from home in this industry and actually get to have a life at the same time. So you can do fun things like just pop out and go to lunch and do whatever it is that you want at any time that you want, right?
Yeah, it's, you know, a lot of people end up talking about the money and this and that and making money online, but for me, it's never been about making money online. Money is just a tool. It's a vehicle. To me, it was always about finding freedom from home. That's what I wanted. I was seeking freedom, and then it transcended that, and it became, you know, helping other people find their own version of freedom too, and that's been the real addictive force that keeps me around. But yeah, never about money, just about time and the freedom to do what you do when you want to do it, with the people you want to do it with, and that's the funnest part of this industry for me. So yeah.
Absolutely, because so many folks, they spend so much time chasing money. They may spend 50, 60, 70 hours trying to make sure that they have enough for what their family needs, that they never get to enjoy any of it, and they never get to experience any of that freedom. They're so busy trying to get more of that tool so that they can pay more of the expenses that the life part kind of gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, it's really sad, you know, to a lot of people that their life becomes a job description because it has to. If it didn't become that, our own healthy part of our egos would fight with life itself. You know, you get a lot of people that get all of a sudden they're lost and they got to find themselves, and I think it's because a lot of times they don't realize that there's other ways, and the way in which they think is reality and the only reality, it makes them feel lost inside. And so now we go on these quests and we can't hold a job, and we can't, because we know something's wrong, but a lot of people just don't realize that there's a different way. There's a different way that you can live life and find the resources you need to live the life you want to live, and they just never find it. So, you know, it's become our purpose and our calling together to just make people aware there's another way to do it. And that's what we discovered was really fun. That made this industry or this profession a fun place to be, because really sometimes, you know, when people get those aha moments and they realize, what? You mean I can really create my own work? I don't need anybody else to give me an assignment or give me a job description or a title. Do you think that I can really tap into this and create my own work and create my own income? And I always tell them, yeah, that's the whole point. You know, that's the whole point. And you can find your passion within it and find the products and services and the other people and help them discover that it is available. So that's always been the funnest part about it. But that's what's sad about finding people that choose to stay in a reality that they think is the only option, because they get a little defensive. You know, you mean to tell me I'm 41 years old and everything that I've learned about how I design my life is not relevant anymore? And they fight for that struggling situation because they need to be right. And you know, I told people, wouldn't it be cool to think a different way? I'd rather be free than to be right sometimes, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's the sad part. A lot of people keep themselves kind of hung up in a reality that they don't need to fight for anymore, you know?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to interview you, you have a team of individuals that have decided to actually make changes that you've been assisting along the way and showing them how to achieve that freedom. And that's why you've named your team the Simple Freedom Team, because you wanted to show folks a simple way in which to have that freedom. And what I noticed a lot about your style of marketing and your style of teaching is that you don't place those constraints upon people. You know, so many of us have been taught that there's a specific way that you have to do everything. You have to go to school for this amount of years, and then you have to pay this money, and you have to have this piece of paper. You have to do all of these things in this order, and then you have to go get a job and start at the bottom and work your way up, and you have to do it all of these different ways. And what I've learned by watching you is that there's so many ways in which you can peel a potato. You know, they say so many ways in which you can skin a cat. There's so many ways in which you can actually achieve that freedom. And what I'd like for you to talk about today is a little bit, in fact, first, before we even get into it, because you know, there's a lot of information and a lot of value that you provide to the marketplace, but there may be some folks that are watching this that are not so familiar with you. They may not know your story and how you ended up being the simple freedom fighter that you are. They may not know how you ended up deciding that you wanted to be an entrepreneur. So maybe if you can just talk to folks a little bit about how was it that you ended up here? How did you end up being an entrepreneur? Did you just, you know, were you born and they said, okay, Franco, you're going to be a home business owner? How did you end up here where you're living a life of freedom and getting to go have teriyaki lunch just in the middle of the day at a whim?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's been a great journey. It's been a tough one. I'm 41 years old. I'm married. Been married for 10 years to Pammy, my wife. And we met at the one of the lowest point ever in my life about 10 years ago, and we have two children right now. Valerie is 5 years old; she's in kindergarten, and Samira is 15 months old, and she is a pistol. And then from my first marriage, I was in the military, so got married very, very young when I was 18. And my first marriage, I have a 20-year-old daughter who's at the university, Cal State Long Beach, and doing absolutely phenomenally well, Olivia. And so the journey kind of started with entrepreneurship really way back in the beginning. I grew up in the inner city. My parents were immigrants to this country. I was an immigrant to this country, never knew it until high school. The kind of the big family secret, you know, was so that was a shock when it happened. But we were first generation here. My parents are from Mexico, and working class people. We were in the inner city in Los Angeles the first half of my childhood, and it was absolutely the worst places to live ever, the worst economic conditions to live ever, no support, no respect from culture, environment, community, authorities, just you know, we felt like outcasts. And as I was growing up, I started understanding a little bit of how broke we were, how just how poor we were. Because, you know, as a kid, I had two younger brothers. I was the oldest of three. We were all 1 year apart. And so I was looked on as the leader from very, very young. I had to be, you know, the oldest, had to act like the oldest. Yep. Because my dad was working all the time, just laboring, whatever he can find. It ended up being construction. As we, you know, found our way later on down the road, he found his way to the construction industry, but first it was just factories in the inner city. When he found work in the construction industry, we moved out to what we call the San Fernando Valley, and by this time, you know, it was the mid to late 80s, the mid to late 80s, and if you guys can remember, it was the crack cocaine epidemic in the inner city in Los Angeles, and it was boys in the hood, and it was colors, and it was real, and that's when life got very real, and you were either faking that you were either taking or selling, but you had to do one of the other, because if not, you were the outcast, and there's no worse place to be in the inner city than where people don't know which side you're on, if you know what I mean. And, you know, and that's what it was. And a lot of times I got caught up in stuff as a kid with the wrong crowds, because I thought, it got carried away. I was with the wrong crowds, but I was just kind of modeling and fine. But inside my head, I was always an introverted kid where if anything happened right in my childhood, my father, my mother, and my grandfather on my mom's side, they always leaned on the power of reading and educating your own mind and thinking for yourself, because they would tell me, look, we're in the middle of no man's land here. Our old country doesn't think we're Mexican enough anymore to claim that. Our new country doesn't think we're American enough to claim that. And the inner city people that are mixed, they don't think we're enough mixed to get that. So I was like, well, who am I? And my father, but more than anything, my maternal grandfather, which was a musician for his whole life, and he was a gentleman that was well respected and loved, and he got invited by some of the richest people around their sphere of influence, loan brokers and business owners, and he used to run a club down south of the border in Mexico, the Fording Club. And it was in the club patch there in Tijuana, and he was a mariachi, but he also owned a couple of other bands, and he was a part owner in this club. He was very well respected, and what he learned is how to get along with people, any day, any time, for whatever reason, and they all loved this guy, and that's my middle name, Franco. So it became my main name because everybody just called me Franco because I modeled him. And he would always tell me, you're in a situation where you don't need enemies. Everybody's volunteering to kind of distrust you and not like us and not know what we're about and stuff. And we don't fit into these labels and these boxes. And at a very young age, he would sit us down and tell us, your escape is going to be to become as likable and relate with as many people as you possibly can. Because in my life, I've learned, this is him talking to us, in my life, I've learned that the fear in the unknown, when people don't know you, the positive there is that you have the ability to become liked by all people. Just respect all people. And once they know that you're on their side and you can relate with them and their story and smile and just hear them out, you're going to find out that a lot of people walk around this world and think it's a very negative place where everybody is out to get you and people don't like you because they don't know you. Well, what he taught us is that he lived the other side of that. He just flipped the script. He said, you know what? I have found out that the world is a positive place, and there's a lot of great people. It doesn't matter where they come from, where they live, what color their skin, whether they're fat or skinny, tall or short. But if you relate with people, you'll find that there's a lot more similarities between us than differences, and you guys got to grow up knowing that. But you also got to learn how to critically think, because everybody walks around in their own reality. And it's not that you want to disrespect them, but a lot of times you got to kind of see things that come from the mass media, from politicians, from corporate America, and also from different peoples, and just take, kind of like take the meat and spit out the bones. Just take it all in, and whatever fits you in a positive way, relate with that. Don't put up barriers. And so that was my upbringing. I just got sick and tired of being broke. We grew up and all of that stuff was great. And, as children, you don't know what poverty is until you start growing up a little bit. And then I realized just how poor we were financially. And quite frankly, I would hear people say that, it's not about the money. It's about so many other things and the love and your family and this and that. Not everybody was born to be rich, and all these justifications. But in my head, I'd been reading and being taught how to think critically, and I was like, well, I've been broke all my life, and I know how to make that positive. I'm just sick and tired of the broke part. We can be very positive knowing that, hey, there's no fear now. There's no reason not to burn my bridges and burn the boats behind me and march forward with my dreams, because I've been there. And I know, in my mindset, if I find myself there again, I have enough tools to be grateful for what I do have, and it ain't that bad, but then again, it ain't scary either, So let's just call it what it is. We've been there. We've been poor, and we've been happy, and all this other stuff. So now let's be not poor and stay happy.
Right, and if anything, we can always go back to being poor if we get upset with whatever else is out there.
It's just a money thing. It's just a mechanics of how you create money. And so that became my next quest in my early adult years. I started observing. I just taught myself to be very observant and to take in information. And that's where I discovered a book. This was beyond, I had found Think and Grow Rich and Dale Carnegie. These are the books that my father and my grandfather introduced me to that allowed me to relate with different people and communicate with different people and get along with different people. And that helped me a lot. I was still very, very introverted, though. I was a reader and a bookworm. And, later on I became that guy at school that can do homework for people, right? And so, there was a skill set.
That's a useful skill set.
I learned the power of developing a skill set that not a lot of other people have, but that they need and they want. So that became the start. Also, to get back to when I was little about entrepreneurship, we were kind of like the poor family in our family. We also had another aunt, a couple of aunts, but there's one aunt in particular that lived in San Diego. And she was married to somebody that was a foreman, union job, a second or third generation American. So they had it going on, right? They had the new Ford truck and the new sedan, and they had the fifth wheel trailer, and they lived in San Diego, which you can't find a bad spot in San Diego. And so I would spend my summers over there, and I learned a completely different culture. And over there, the culture was, it was cool to generate your own work and create your own money. And my cousin was 4 years older than myself, Ricardo, and every summer I would go down there and spend, a month or 2 months of my summer with them. And it was a breath of fresh air. It took me away from the drive-by shooting and the negativity and the inner city stuff in LA. And I had to watch what color I was going to wear. I couldn't wear my Dodger hat if I wanted to because I was living in a red neighborhood, So all of this stuff, it was just so much stress relief for an adolescent, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid to get out of there. And so what I saw down there, though, was something entirely different. My cousin would get up, and I would get up with him because I was just energized by this entrepreneurial thing. In the morning, the San Diego Union Tribune would deliver all the papers on our driveway at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. We would get up with wire cutters. We'd bust through that thing. We'd fold up all the papers. We'd put them in our bike. We had, basket, whatever. We had backpacks and stuff. We'd just load up our bikes, and we would go on his paper route. And I would help him throw papers, at all. That's when we still did it that way. And then we would do that through the summer. When it was time to collect, we would then ride around to all of our customers, and I observed he was very polite with them, and they all loved him because he was positive, and he would ask them, what's going on with the Padres, and how about the beach, and hey, the weather, and they would just talk to him, and everybody liked him. So all his customers were friends, and then he would go and knock on doors, and he had this little flyer that was just a few testimonials from existing customers. And he would go door knocking after collecting money and go, hey, I have this paper route and I'd love to deliver the paper for you. Why don't you try it for a week for free? No problem. I pay for it. I'll pay for it. Yeah, I just want it to be okay if I throw the paper in your house as well starting tomorrow. They would say, really? Free? Absolutely free. No strings, no obligation. Just opt into my list, right?
Correct. Get into my funnel.
Exactly. Pop into my funnel and join us on our Hangouts, right? And so, but that's how he would do it. And he would gain new customers. And I don't remember anyone saying that had, some people would say, no, it's okay, I already get it, or I don't care about the paper, get off my lawn. But of the people that said, sure, go ahead, start, young man, thank you very much, because there was no obligation to them, I don't remember any of them not becoming a paying customer. So that was lesson number one. After we would do that in the morning, we would then go around the neighborhood. People already knew him. Everybody knew Cardo. And he would go around with his lawnmower. And we'd put this lawnmower up, and there we went. And we would go cut people's lawns. And that's what we would do in the late morning, early afternoon, before it got really hot. It never gets really hot in San Diego. That's a beautiful thing about it. But we would go do some lawns of the neighborhood, and then he would do the same thing. He had a little flyer with testimonials. We'd knock on a few doors that were not his customer, or pick a different block and go knock on some doors and volunteer to do their lawn for free, twice, not once. And no obligation. I just want to show you how, service. I live down the street. There's my mom. My mom works at the school, yada, yada. And so, again, we would collect more free customers and do some new lawns. Then when we were done there, because that was more of a cash business, that was kind of like his funded proposal. He would then ask those people later if they wanted the paper for free for a week. But that was the fast cash business where he would also go around and collect for the people that needed to pay for their loan service. And now it was the afternoon. We would hop on the bus. We wouldn't ask mom or dad for a ride or do any of this stuff. We would just say, you know, we'd grab our boogie boards, get our backpack. We'd go. Now, this was in the years where you could do that and not get killed or kidnapped. I just want to disclaim that I wouldn't let my kids go around and do that these days, but it was a new world, right?
Right.
Incredible. But that's what we would do. We would actually either go to the arcade and go to the mall, or hop on the bus and take it all the way to the beach. And we would spend our afternoons on the beach having created our own money, not having to rely on an allowance or anything like that. And, you know, one summer I did that, and I saved a lot of money. It was the first time in my life I had the opportunity to go and buy my own school clothes and buy what I wanted to wear. I think it was my first year in high school, going from junior high to high school. So that was my introduction to the beauty and the addiction of being able not to make your own money. I never saw it as that way. I saw it as a way of creating my own work. Because if I knew how to create my own work, why would I ever need somebody else to create it for me in the form of a job description or a title? You know, and so that was just ingrained in my mind. Later on, the way it developed, because I didn't have the grades or the money to go straight to college, and there was no way I was going to survive if I stayed in the San Fernando Valley in the late 80s, early 90s, and tried to go to junior college and then transition in, or go to the post office for a job like everybody else did, or go to Home Depot. Nothing wrong with that. But I just saw what was happening to people that did not leave when they could. And so the only opportunity I saw was the military. And that gave me a different sense of freedom, but it also gave me a sense of, you know, if there's anything where you are not free at the same time. Maybe I was a kid, I felt free, I had my own money, I could rent my own apartment, had my own car, but I was not free in the fact that you definitely had people telling you where you needed to be, at what time, doing what thing, and then they could throw you in harm's way for their reasons. And so I started analyzing that. I loved it, would never give that away. I'm absolutely grateful for what I learned during the military, but I also observed what people's lifestyle was that had chosen it as a career path. You know, 15 years in, 20 years in, and I saw how they were living, where they were living, who they had to ask permission, where their kids were going to school, how many times they went on vacation. Some people loved it, other people didn't, but they stayed because of a necessity, benefits and this thing. And so I just made the decision early on that that was not going to be my career. And then I went to corporate America, which was my only option. And very quickly I discovered, you know, great, they're paying me great money compared to what all my other buddies were doing, but I saw bigger things. The book that changed my life back then was The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah,
I read that thing, and I had never had anyone explain to me graphically and little by little in chunks the 4 different ways that people make money. And I just saw myself, I go, you know what, the happiest times of my life is when I was a self-employed, delivering papers with my cousin and creating our own work and doing lawns. But then also we had a couple of buddies that we taught to, we would go and get the free customers, turn them into paid customers on the lawn care stuff. And our buddy, who had his own lawnmower but was shy and didn't know how to do what we did, talking to people, and so he would be the one that actually went to cut the lawn. So I did get a taste of being a business owner, owning a system, making the relationship, gaining the clients, but having other people or other systems or websites or hangouts, or if you get my drift, you know, having other ways of fulfilling and fulfilling the product or service to the end consumer. And so I realized all 4 different ways. I had just never experienced being number 4 with Kiyosaki was the investor. You know, just having your money working for you. But I envisioned it because I knew the other 3. And I just thought to myself as a young adult, I said, you know, the happiest moments in my life is when we were sitting at the beach knowing we made our own money. How cool that was, that we can go straight to the people and deliver a product with no middleman, no job description, no nothing, and gain the profit. And so that's when I decided I'm going to transition, and everything I discovered, magical things happen when you put the intention out there and you visualize how you would want your life to be. All of a sudden, concepts, ideas, people, places, things, systems, courses, whatever start to happen. And what I see in life is that so many people that say they want something, and they visualize, and they even make intentions, and then all of a sudden the life, universe, God, whatever you believe in, I honor that. But whatever it is, starts sending you all of these opportunities and ideas and concepts, and they got the intention part right, and they got the visualization. Everyone's with their mantras, and everybody's visualizing, everybody's making a dream board. But then everyone's closed off when the opportunities, the ideas, and the concepts start showing up. They figure out ways to say, no, not right now. I don't have time. I don't have the money. Wait until such and such, or wait until so-and-so goes to school, or wait until, as if we've been promised so many years, So I see that a lot. I actually took the opportunity, and to me, I lived in a positive world in my own head. I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? If it's not legitimate, if whatever concept or scheme or whatever I found didn't work, I was going to find out what worked and what didn't work. So no big deal, and I just kept on going forward, and it kind of leads us to where we are today. A couple of years ago, I was pretty burnt out because I had developed ways or learned ways to generate my own income, but something was missing. I was generating my own income, so our family was eating, but I saw what I was selling and what I was delivering and whether people can actually do what I did. There was a conflict there that I didn't find acceptable. And at the time, I just didn't know how else to simplify it. And that's where we developed this vision for simple freedom. And that became not only my logo, my mantra, my little thing, but it really became a quest. It was like, no, I want to find a way to simplify these things so that people that have kids, responsibilities, full-time jobs, careers, professions, where they can simplify it too, and it doesn't have to become this info overload, overwhelming thing that nobody can actually do. And so that led me to discovering the way I do things now, and actually that led me to a decision, and the decision was very simple. My name is Franco Gonzalez, and this is how I do it. And it became simple freedom, right? And so that whole thing became, wait, does this align with our vision and the way we do things? And it had to be simple. It had to be legitimate. It had to be viable. But is it simple? And we don't, we just make the decision to cross things out that were not as simple as we wanted them to be and add things. And I really didn't care what other people thought. We've joined some things in the past. We've done things, even what we do currently, that a lot of people, they have opinions. And it's what we do is not for everybody, but being a postman or being in the military is not for everybody. And people don't get all irate about it on Facebook. It's just, if it's not for you to be a surgeon, great, don't be a surgeon. But you don't have to post incessantly about it on Facebook. And so that's how we took it. It's just life. And we just focus on sharing what we love and what we do. There's a video out there by Will Smith. And sometimes it sounds as if I've memorized it because I almost have. And it's one of the power of mindset with Will Smith. And he says something so similar to this. And he just said, this is who I am, and this is what I do, and I love life, and I just want to share it. And that stuck with me so powerfully because it's become the way we do things, because why not? We could. Our lifestyle has become how we do business and how we live, and there's no differences. I don't need a personal Facebook and a business Facebook, and I talk to these people about this, and I talk to relatives about that, and we just live our life and we love it, and we document it. And when people see that, when they, people that see other people that truly, two things, love what they're doing, have a passion for it, and love other people, and they see them loving on other people, there's a big chunk of society that is attracted to that no matter what. And at the end of the day, that's where it becomes kind of like a non-issue of, well, the product, the service, the thing that you do, they just want to be with you. And that's how we've designed kind of the way we live now. and it's our business and it's our life and we love it and we have a passion for it. But that's kind of the long version of my story on how it became a kind of a journey towards entrepreneurship and onto the internet. So that's it. You know.
Well, I think that's really an awesome story, Franco, because you touched on so many different things, and I hope that the viewers are actually catching all of these amazing techniques and nuggets that you're actually dropping for them, because look at that, even as a young person. Now, how old were you when you and your cousin were doing the newspaper and lawn mowing?
Yeah, he was 4 years older than me, and he was already going from a junior to a senior in high school, the most impressionable year. So he had to be, 16, 17. I was 4 years younger than that, so I had to be, 12 or 13. And he was like my first mentor, business mentor, life mentor, personal development mentor, because he was already reading books. No, we were all reading comic books, playing Monopoly. But he was also reading some Napoleon Hill and some things that kids his age were not reading, and that's another discovery that I made there. I kept, wherever I found people that were having fun in life and making things happen and owning it, the bad and the good. They wouldn't blame other people for, why do we live in this neighborhood? It's this president's fault, or it's my dad's fault, or it's my mother's fault. We just owned it. We said, well, we're here. How do we make the best of it? And, thinking back now, Renee, actually, as I think through this hangout, because of how I grew up, those are some of the biggest skill sets that I've been able to own. And it's not something that you're going to find in an ebook anywhere or an MLM or whatever you're doing on the internet. You really won't find that there. But when you find leaders of leaders everywhere, you find it. And that's kind of what it is. And because I grew up in the inner city, broke, and, place where culturally I just didn't know where I fit. I didn't fit anywhere. It caused me to have to learn a skill set on how can I relate with all these people at the same time. So instead of being in one box, I was able to learn how to jump into all of them.
And that's an amazing skill set to even have, because not only were you guys making money, which is really great, but as you said, that wasn't really the point of it. It was a matter of actually finding freedom, even as a child, to be able to say, okay, we're going to be able to go to the arcades, we're going to be able to go shoot pool, we're going to be able to go hang out at the beach, and we don't have to ask somebody that's going to tell us, no, we don't have enough, no, we can't do it, no, we can't afford it. You actually simply made a decision to go out there and try to provide value to other people. So you had an irresistible offer, which you were able to provide to these people. Once they were able to take you up on that offer and they were able to see the value in what you provided, they then wanted to be able to spend money with you. They wanted to do business with you, and they wanted to be able to get a product or a service from you, and that's what a lot of entrepreneurs actually miss out on. They miss out on the part of actually providing value. So it doesn't matter whether you have a tire shop, whether you have a restaurant, whether you're selling milkshakes, whether you're selling body wraps. It doesn't matter what it is that you're offering people. If you don't have an irresistible offer, and if you're not providing value to folks, nobody's going to show up and just throw money at you. You actually have to be providing some form of value, and then people want to exchange their money to be able to get more of the value that you have to offer. And so it's amazing to hear you tell that story, because when I watch the way that you market and the way you interact with the public and the way that you're able to help folks, I notice that in you now as a full-grown adult. You still continue to provide as much value as possible. You try to help as many people as you can. And in turn, people are just compelled to come and spend money with you. Whether you're offline talking to them belly to belly, whether you're online doing hangouts, or you're on Facebook, you're still providing that value, and people are actually giving you money for it. Isn't it amazing how that actually works out?
Yeah, I'm just, the kid that never got off his bike delivering papers. I mean, I just continued doing the same thing we had always done when I remember being the most fulfilled and the most happy. Because when I was back home in the inner city, I felt like in a box, in a tiny box, where you had to be cool based on somebody else's definition of it. You had to listen to certain music, and even if you liked it, but you had to listen to only that music. If you put on something else, somebody was going to pop off and say something, right? So it's a very restrictive, environment. And I guess the lucky thing to me is that I had a chance to experience both environments. So I felt the constraint, and then I also felt the freedom of just being out there, just riding my bike, delivering papers, meeting people, making friends, offering value, offering a service with no obligation. And you're right, it doesn't matter whether you're selling health and wellness, weight loss products, whether you're selling information products on the internet, offline or online, it's the same thing. Online, we've discovered a way to, instead of knocking on a person's door or giving them a phone call and setting up a Starbucks or a home meeting or something like that to get to know a new person, right? Warm friends and family all the time. I always say, I never run out of my warm market, because my mission just in life in general is that everybody's my friend. They just don't know it yet. So that was never an issue, but it was the modality of the business. There was some elements of it to my introverted nature where I would clam up and close up when I was trying to do this business as a young entrepreneur. I knew the door knocking stuff and I knew all that, but somehow it didn't translate to a suit and a tie and a whiteboard and drawing circles on boards. Whatever, my own personal development journey, it just didn't translate. And then all of a sudden, at the same time, this internet started coming out, and I was captivated by it, and I said, wow, so I can be in San Diego, wherever in the world I am. I can be in San Diego, in Paris, talking to people, knocking on their door, ask them if they want the free newspaper or want their grass cut, and it was all a method of figuring out where are the people hanging out that are already looking for my kind of information that I have to offer and buying it. So I know they're out there. Let me talk to somebody who's already found them, right, and is selling to them, somebody that's successful, and let me model them. That was the only tweak that cured everything for me. That was the biggest tip, is I found mentors that were already getting the results I wanted. And at the same time, what was kind of frustrating to me when trying to teach this to other people is so many people so quickly would make the brilliant decision that they would ask a different question. They would ask, well, I went to do my research on the internet, and they say that 97 or 99% of people fail doing this stuff, and I went and found one of those guys, a few of those guys, and look at this blog or look at this video or look at this thing, and all these people are saying that it doesn't work, right? And the difference to me was, why in the world, if I already know that there's 5 or 3, whatever the percent is, never mattered to me. If I know there's another human being walking this planet that made it work and they're developing and creating their own lifestyle, why in the world would I want to spend my time learning from people that haven't figured it out when I can go to the guy that knows how to hit the home run and take batting practice with him? I want to study them. I don't want to study the people that for whatever reason are not there yet. And that was the biggest thing with this industry. And in life itself, a lot of people get complacent, even at a job. I remember I was in the military, and I was a combat paramedic stationed with grunt units with the Marine Corps Infantry. And so same thing was happening there. So many few people, they would get into something that's physically demanding or mentally stressful, and they would gravitate to other people that weren't cutting it. And that's where they would kind of, meet and whine and kind of do the little complaining thing and give them, I got sores on my feet, so that's why I couldn't do the whole march or the jog, or my knees hurt when I run, so I've never been a runner, so I can never be a runner. You would hear all that conversation over there. Yet it didn't call me. I wanted to go where the real, I won't say it here because it's our branding, but where the real tough people were at, and the people that were doing it. And I wanted to go with those guys. The what was that movie? The Rambos, if you will. Yes. The guys that were getting it done, and they knew their work, they knew their job backwards and forwards. If it was weapons, if it was military uniform and how to wear it, if it was running, I always sought to be taught by people that were getting great results. And that's where, the info overload went away, the overwhelm went away, and I just said, well, let me model what these guys are doing. I did the same thing with the internet. I just went to people that had some stuff figured out. I saw how they were doing it. I started modeling it, and then lo and behold, it just started working for me, and then I began to teach it. And I saw people doing that offline, online, health and wealth, any industry, any niche. I know that there's people just hitting the cover off the ball. Why would you want to learn with anybody else? And then that became just a philosophy that I believe.
I mean, that's so smart, because it's like, if you want to play basketball, you could say that only 1% of people are actually ever going to become professional basketball players. So does that mean that you go watch clips of the 99% that don't make it? Do you follow the example of the 99% of people that don't see it through? Or do you go watch the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, the Kobes, all of these folks? And folks, don't be mad if I'm calling players that you don't like. It's just an example. But the point of the matter is, you want to follow those that have been most successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you have any type of business and you're trying to figure out how to market it, you need to figure out who is it that knows how to do marketing and actually learn from those people. That's why I pay attention to folks like Franco. That's why I pay attention to folks that are getting the results that I want. I make sure I watch what they're doing, and then I learn it, I implement it, and then I can share and teach it to others. And that's how we're able to provide value to other people. So Franco, tell me, if you could think of what was one most effective strategy, and we know that there are many, there's so many different paths that we can take to be able to get to the goal of results. But if you're to set your success GPS and choose the best route that you have found in your business, in your time in business, what would you say would be your most effective strategy that you've been able to use to create success in your business?
Yeah, I would have to say, looking back on everything, there's really two big things. One is more philosophical, but one is tactical. I mean, anybody can hone in and just Google, YouTube, find a mentor on your team, away from your team. It doesn't matter. Don't change your team. Don't change your sponsor. But you can. There's a couple of things. Number one, from the philosophical angle, I just told myself, I'm going to take the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and man, I'm just going to apply it all through my life, online, offline, wherever I go. If I'm on Facebook, I'm playing Dale Carnegie. If I'm in a discussion forum, I'm doing Dale Carnegie. If anywhere, if I'm making a video or on a hangout or wherever we find ourselves at live events, getting my education, meeting people, networking, I'm doing How to Win Friends and Influence People, because in that book, it's ancient, it's like 1,000 years old, but at the same time, and there's other great books out there too, and this is a debate that can go on forever, right? Yes, they do all come from an ancient set of scrolls, maybe 2,000 years old. Everything was born there. Everybody's been plagiarizing the book all this time. But one thing about How to Win Friends and Influence People that I like is that at the end of every single chapter, he gave me assignments. He just said, all right, we just talked about, this. Now go do these 3 or 4 things. Every chapter, he told me what to do, and he told me what not to do. And I've been applying it on Facebook. Before Facebook, I applied it on discussion forums to find people and compliment them and recognize them and approve of them and offer them situations and never going against the grain. You can be provocative and stuff. There's nothing wrong with helping people think. And it's okay not to be the most popular thing out there on some issues, and that's okay. Hold your ground, plant your flag, throw cement in the ground, and stay there. However, there is a thing of human relations. So that's number one. More tactically, strategy-wise, I think what saved my career all this time, because I've never been a sideline person. I'm not one to overanalyze, sometimes to a fault, things. I make fast decisions. I jump into things. I've been into all kinds of things because I wanted to experience what worked for me and what didn't and why. I just didn't buy into the positive or the negative hype, although I don't believe in hype. You got to move people somehow. If it wasn't a sizzle, people probably would pass on steak and buy some oatmeal, right? So you got to have a little sizzle to things. So I don't get some people get annoyed at a lot of hype. I find it fun. It's just hilarious. It's like being in a comedy club sometimes. What people will do out there. But strategically, the thing that saved my business was list building. The concept of no matter what I'm doing, no matter what content I'm creating or what tactic I'm sharing or how much value I'm giving on my blog or on Facebook or on stuff that I want people to find on the search engines or on videos, no matter what, you will very rarely find something that I put out there that does not have a clear invitation to get on my list about something. That was just ingrained in me because a mentor told me years and years back, he said, you're doing all this internet marketing stuff, but you come from the old school. Would you call Jim Rohn, would you say that Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar are internet marketers? And I said, of course not. Jim Rohn is Jim Rohn and Zig is Zig, right? But he said, do you know that they probably have the biggest databases on the planet? They can get to presidents. They can get to company owners in Fortune 500 companies. They can write one email or send out a video or something, and dignitaries and entrepreneurs, big and small, little guy and huge guy, big gal, little gal, they will be heard. They've been building a list for decades. You just don't see it that way, but they have lists. So if anything, focus on building your list. So then my question was, well, how do I do that? And through the years, I found out, well, how do you not do that? It's one of the easiest things. Once you grasp the thing that if you're going to be on the internet growing any kind of business, there's no other asset. I don't care what your product is, what your compensation plan says, what your service is, which blog, where you blog at, where's your blog at, where's your websites at, where do you host? It doesn't matter. The most important asset will be who's on your list and how do they feel about you. And so I just got on a quest. No matter what I was doing, I was always telling people, hey, for more coaching tips, jump on my list. It can be as easy as somebody on Facebook, if you post a picture and a little comment or whatever that's of value, with no link. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It doesn't matter, because when people like what I do there on Facebook, even let's assume it's something without a link, it's a picture and something I say about something that I'm doing. The people that want to know more, they'll come and they'll ask you. You get a message. Hey, Franco, I saw what you posted. Or it could be in the comments. People want to engage with you. The first thing I say is, hey, man, yeah, I hope this answers your question, yada, yada. Aren't you on my VIP coaching list yet? That's what I send to people in private. So jump on my list. Well, how do I do that? I know you're here, you're there. Just go to my blog and click any banner. I send one email to hit all my lists. Yep. People think I have different lists. I really don't. It's everywhere in different uniforms, but it all leads to the same message, and I broadcast daily, but I've been always building my list. That's the one technique that will never go wrong for you. It will never hurt you. You're building a list. That skill will never be bad news. You might get into programs that shut the door. You might get into programs that adjust their compensation plan. You might get into stuff like a buddy of mine, very famous buddy of mine in the industry, started out by teaching people how to use MySpace to generate leads. MySpace is dead, right? Did it stop him? No. He knew how to build a list. So he just took his talents to Miami, right? He just went to Facebook and he went all over the place. So building a list. List building is the most important thing that I do. It's the most important thing I'll ever do. And then later on it becomes relating to your list and selling to your list and market, all that stuff. But just building a list is the most important tip I can give anybody.
Oh, I think that was an absolutely awesome tip, Franco, because there's so many folks with so many types of businesses, whether they're online, whether they're offline, that they may just drive traffic to their place of business. So they may drive traffic to a store, they may drive traffic to a website, and they're hoping that people will buy. But whether they buy or whether they don't buy, if that business ever closes down and you have not built a list, folks, then you have to start all over again. So if you're promoting a particular business and you think this is the one, and you're promoting it, but you're not building a list, no matter how many sales you make, if you don't have a list of those buyers, if you don't have any relationship with those buyers, if anything happens to that business, to that source of income, you're totally squashed, and then you have to start all over again. I see that there's a lot of folks that say, oh, well, I do Facebook. I don't need a website because I do Facebook. Well, if Mark Zuckerberg decides, that Facebook thing, it's overrated. You know, everyone was into MySpace, like you said, for such a long time, and folks thought MySpace was going to go on forever. And while MySpace is still there, there's still a lot of tumbleweed that's rolling around, and there's not necessarily a lot of folks still hanging out over there. And so if you only built all of your information as far as your MySpace friends list, how do you build a relationship? How do you continue to contact those people? How do you follow up with them? You can't, because they're not there anymore. If you're sending them messages on on MySpace, they're not there to read those messages. So you definitely need a centralized location that you control, that you can build that list, just like Franco was talking about, and actually have the ability to communicate and build a relationship and do those type of things, which you can definitely learn more about by going to either one of our sites. You can actually learn more about how you do that. But I think that is an awesome, awesome point for folks to really comprehend, is the whole point of building that list. And a point that I want to bring up for folks that don't realize is that a lot of folks are going to come to your website. Say you're driving traffic to your sales website, and you're thinking that people are going to buy. Most folks, and I'm not sure that I have the percentage right, but I would say about 85% of the people that come to your website are not going to buy that very first time. And I think that percentage is actually higher. They may want to make a buying decision maybe within the first 18 months from actually visiting your website. So if you don't have a way to communicate with them within that 18 months to make sure that your business stays on the forefront of their mind, so that they'll remember you when they're ready to make a buying decision, guess what? They're still going to make that decision, and the money is still going to pass hands to someone. But if you're not communicating with them on a regular basis for them to even remember you, you're not likely to get that business. So you spend so much money. It costs a lot of money to get prospects, and even more to actually get buyers. So if you're not actually capitalizing on that and making sure that you have a way to contact those people, you're kind of just throwing money out the door. I wouldn't even say leaving it on the table, because when money's on the table, you can put your hand and pick it up. But you're kind of just throwing the money right out the door so that someone else can show up and pick it up. So I think that was a really great point, Franco, about actually building your list. So that's a really good one. Let me see. I think we covered so much of all of my questions here today, but I do have one more for you before we go. Because, wow, we've almost gone an hour, and I don't even think we've hit the tip of the iceberg.
It felt like 5 minutes.
So if you could give any of the entrepreneurs out there one golden action step to take today in their business, what would it be? One action step, just like how Dale Carnegie was giving you action steps, because folks, you can learn as much as you want to learn. You can watch these interviews, you can research online, but if you don't take the next step, which is to implement what you've learned so that you can share and teach others, you kind of miss the whole progress that you can make. So if there was one action step that folks could take right now today in their business, what would you say for that?
Oh, absolutely. Staying congruent with what we just talked about. It would have to be, number one, it'll be two. Number one, do more than you learn. There's a lot of people that get stuck in professional student mode. And let me tell you, things are changing so fast in our industry, offline and online, but especially online. Every single day there's something new that didn't even exist the prior day. And a lot of people think they have to learn everything before they do anything. They get stuck there. The one knack that I had is I'm all about hacking through the jungle and striking out if I have to strike out, but I'd rather be at the plate swinging than in the dugout learning how to swing. So do more than you learn. It's okay. You're going to find out what works and what doesn't work, and you can always adjust. Number two, if you're not building your own list right now, do something, whatever you have to do, but do something today. Get an autoresponder today. Most of the popular ones have a $1 trial. Get with Renee. Go to topdailycommissions.com, but own an autoresponder today if you don't have one, and create a capture page. There's tools to help you do. There's systems. There's things that to you might seem like a biz op, but really they're not. They're just systems that you can use to guide people to build your list, and then you can keep marketing to your heart's content, whatever you got. But I would stay congruent. I would say if you're not already building your own list, do something today to get closer to owning the ability to build your own list. Because like Renee was saying, MySpace, there's another very good thing, very good experience for you to learn from that you don't have to go through. I had over 650 videos on YouTube back in 2008. And every single one, and we thought YouTube, it's owned by Google, it's going to be around forever. My subscriber list there was in the tens of thousands of people were subscribing, meaning I thought it was a list. I thought it was my list, same as Facebook and MySpace. And what happened was, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, there was malicious people that don't understand, or they do understand, but they don't like entrepreneurship. They just don't like what we do, and they may have targeted one thing or one niche or one whatever, but because what we do is kind of similar, making money or helping people develop businesses on the internet from home, we fell under an umbrella, and all of a sudden, from one day to the next, all my videos were my training content. People were going to my blog to learn something. They would click on the video. Video does not exist anymore because the user's account is gone. And with it was 85% of my daily traffic flow, where I got all my leads, were flowing from these videos because the way I created them. What I thought was my list, I would create one video, thousands of subscribers would get an email from Google saying, Franco just made a new video for you. So it was my communication, it was my lifeline, it was gone. So don't rely on Facebook or Google or YouTube or Google Plus or any other platform where you do not own the content or the database. There's content and there's database. You need to get in a position where you own both, because you never know. Yeah, I've been speaking to the MLM market that might be listening to this. If you're in an MLM like I've been for years, I've been in so many companies that I loved, get all emotional about it, and it's awesome, great to call all that stuff. But all of a sudden, maybe the super galactic upline decides that they're taking their talents to Miami. So things can happen, and overnight, now what used to be your superwoman, right, is marketing down to her team, right, which used to be you brought them there. But you know what happens in MLM, the minute they become part of the family, they look up to the bigger mom and the bigger dad, right? It's just the way it is. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or don't do it. I'm saying love it, do it, that's awesome. Take care of your list. Take care of your list, because if that happens, if the company all of a sudden decides to improve or enhance their comp plan, which means make it worse for you and better for them in a lot of instances, things can happen, and I can, I've seen teams and customer databases changes in product, that they change a product's ingredient or branding, and all of a sudden, people, sometimes they can be very nitpicky about the way their product was, and if you change one letter, they don't like it anymore. Things can happen. Don't allow other people 100% to own your prospect and your customer list, your team list. Leaders out there, I'll speak to leaders a little bit, but it's the same tip. I used to be in teams where I was just being a team player, and I would, send people, my teammates that I did the work and advertising and everything to develop, and I would send that relationship and okay, welcome to the team, go over there. And I would send them over there, and I would send them nowhere that I controlled. And when things happened or whatever, and all of a sudden, I didn't really control the relationship of that teammate. But not that that's important. They're on everybody's list. Everybody's on everybody's list. So don't get controlling or obsessive about your people. You know, that's not where I'm going. But I didn't have a way, if I wanted something to say, I didn't have a way to communicate with them. And so what I started doing, once I started to learn a little bit better of how to be a leader in this game, I would also create a different capture page for my new teammates. I would still send them, I would total team player, go over there, listen to the upline or whatever. In the MLM game, that's what we do. But I would also say, make sure you're on our personal team list. Go over here. I've got some information. This way, when there's a conference call or a hangout or whatever, I can communicate with you too. Just go ahead. I've got some bonuses for you there, right? And I would create a reason to build my own buyers list, my team list, and my customer and prospect list. Got to build your own list. Do something today where you're building your own list. Very critical, no matter what else you're doing.
Oh, wow. This was absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal, Franco. So I'm going to go over really quickly before we close out just the things that I have picked up from this awesome interview. Essentially, folks, if you are running a business, you want to make sure that you are actually creating value for your prospects and your target market. You want to make sure that you're building a list of those prospects. You want to make sure that you're building a relationship with folks, and also that you have a compelling offer to be able to offer them so that they will want to continue to do business with you. Folks, I am so excited that we were able to get all of this awesome information from Franco, and I'm a little frozen. Are you able to still see me?
I'm okay. I can see you fine, and that's how I do it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on This Is How I Do It. Thank you so much, Franco, for actually sharing your story with us and sharing such wonderful, powerful information. I hope that's watching actually takes a moment to go and implement some of what you have learned here on this wonderful interview, and implement it into your business and actually get some changes going that you may have been looking for. I'm sure that there's a link wherever you're watching this video. Make sure that you click on it so that you can get more valuable information from Franco, from myself, and be able to put forth some of these strategies into our business. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of This Is How I Do It. Thank you so much for joining us, Franco. I appreciate it, and I'm going to be seeing you in a couple weeks in Chicago.
Absolutely. Chi-Town Pizza. Thanks for having me. The pleasure's all mine.
All right. Wonderful, Franco. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.